Good afternoon, folks. This is Robert Chappell, Executive Editor of Madison365, with your daily update for what's today? Tuesday, April 6th. I should know that because that is Election Day. So if you have not yet voted, please do so. Sorry, let me get this. There we go. That's better. Lots of local elections today. One statewide race, and that's the Superintendent of Public Instruction. But lots of there's a few mayoral races around the state, as well as alder races, city council races, school board races, county board, county executive. And I will say, having worked in politics back, in a previous life, I can tell you that these local elections that you don't pay attention to, not you personally, but that a lot of people that don't get the attention that they should probably, have more impact on your day-to-day life than the president does. You know what I mean? Like having decent roads and up-to-date school buildings and police that treat people with respect and all that stuff, that comes from local elections. So if you haven't got out to vote yet, do so. I did this morning. And we will be just pay attention to Madison365.org and our Facebook and Twitter feed tonight. We'll be putting out results as they come in. Usually, these local elections are tallied pretty quickly. It sounds like the mail-in ballots are already being tallied. So by 9 or 10 o'clock tonight, we should know most of the results. So just pay attention to Madison365.org to find out as those returns come in. Okay, so let's first I got to mention that our good friends at Forward Theater Company are supporting the show today, and they are presenting a play called Lewiston Clarkston by Samuel Hunter. It's a 2-play experience. It's basically 2 one-act plays in the same evening, following the descendants of the famous explorers, Lewis and Clark, who struggled to forge their own legacies in the modern American landscape. This virtual theater experience is streaming online April 9th to the 25th. Tickets at forwardtheater.com. And what's interesting about this show? The last one they did virtually, they actually filmed it they filmed the 2 actors separately and put them together in the sort of virtual space. This one, they actually filmed it on stage at the Playhouse at Overture Center here in Madison, socially distant, and everybody's tested in a safe way. So you'll actually get to see the actual on the stage theatrical production. And Forward Theater Company, if you don't know, is a terrific local professional theater company here in Madison. And if you're not in Madison, take this opportunity to see a really good professional production, because you can see it online wherever you are. You don't have to come to Madison to see this. So I would commend that to you. And we appreciate their support of the show today. Now, bad news on the coronavirus front. The bad news is that we are reporting today 886 new cases of COVID-19. That's the most we've seen since at least February. There was a couple of days in February when we saw in that sort of 800 and 900 range. And it's not just because of more testing either. We have actually less testing today than we've seen recently. 3,300 tests, 886 cases. That's pretty terrible. Now, some of that might be data catch up. You know what I mean? So some of those 886 cases might not be new cases today or in the last couple of days. They might be a couple weeks old, but most of those are in the last couple of days. And we know that because the positive test rate for the past 7 days is also up. We tried so hard. We worked so long to get that below 3%. That's the threshold. Public health people will tell you, if you keep it below 3% of all the tests being positive, that means you're testing enough and you've got the thing basically under control. You know what you're dealing with. You can isolate the cases, etc. Once you get above 3%, then you're starting to lose control of it. We are now at 3.5. It has gone up steadily since March 14th. We hit the bottom at 2.0, which was great. I was very excited about that. I wanted it to keep going down. Now, since March 14th, it has gone up steadily until now we're at 3.5. Not great. Okay, deaths today, we report 8, which again, remember that deaths are a lagging indicator, meaning the deaths we're reporting today reflect the number of cases we had a month to 6 weeks ago. Because it takes, a couple of weeks for a person who gets sick, gets hospitalized, passes away. That takes a couple of weeks. And then it takes another couple of weeks to get that reported into the data. So our deaths are relatively low. At the current average is 5 per day that are reported, which is pretty low. Again, though, that reflects the cases that we had, a month ago where we were doing 200, 300 cases a day. I would anticipate, a month from now, the deaths being slightly higher, not a lot higher, slightly higher. I would anticipate these numbers of cases that we're seeing right now, our death rate in another month might be 7 or 8. Not the 60 that we saw in the fall, not the 30 that we saw for much of last year, but still slightly higher than it is right now, just because the cases are up right now. And then, anytime the cases go up, deaths and hospitalizations go up 3 or 4 weeks later. That's just how it has worked in the past year. On the not so bad news side, vaccinations continue to push forward apace. We're reporting just under 33,000 more doses administered in the past 24 hours. Again, those are reported, so those are probably doses that were given like on Friday and Saturday of last week. But in any case, now we have a completed count of almost 1.9 million people. I think it's 1.185 million people. So I would anticipate we will pass 1.2 million tomorrow, which is good. I mean, that's great news. Let me check on I don't have the correct percentage here to give you the percentage of the population, but basically we have 15,000 people finish their vaccine, get the second shot in the past 24 hours, and then 21,000 people got the first shot in the past 24 hours. So again, the disparities continues to be there. I'm going to be talking tomorrow with Shiva Bidar-Siloff from UW Health about their efforts to get the vaccine into marginalized and underserved communities. I know that the state, you may remember I've told you a couple of times, the state is putting $6.2 million into outreach efforts to get vaccine, not to get the vaccine physically to the people who need it, who are in those vulnerable communities that might not have that much access, but also get information to them. And I know that whole effort is really kicking off tomorrow. There's a meeting tomorrow for all of those agencies, the 100 organizations that are actually going to be doing that work. There's a meeting tomorrow for that. So that's going to get underway. So the disparities we should begin to address those disparities in the next few weeks, and you'll be seeing more from us on that, as we are one of the nonprofit organizations that is in on that effort, and we're very proud and to be part of that team that's going to help this get done. So I did look up the percentage. Now we're at 20.4%, so slightly more than 1 out of 5 Wisconsin adults now has completed their vaccine cycle, which is good. We just got to get that to 80%. That's at least 3 months away. And if the spread numbers continue the way they are, before the vaccine can catch up, we could be in really bad shape by July. 3 months is a long time in this thing, right? If you remember, we went last year from June, July to the end of August, or say toward the end of June is when things started to go up last year. So think about July, August. By the end of September, we were in full-blown crisis mode by the end of September, within 3 months. So we have to be careful. Keep your masks on. avoid the indoor gatherings. Like there's some evidence that outdoor gatherings are relatively safe, especially if you're really smart about it and keep your keep your household distance from other households, keep your masks on when you can, when you have to, but then get your vaccine when your turn comes and when you can. All right, that is the coronavirus news. We're gonna take a short pause, hear from our sponsor, UW Health, and then I'm gonna have a interview with Calvin Barrett, the new Dane County Sheriff, and then a couple other news items for you right after this.
Here in the Midwest, community is important.
Having a healthcare system that's looking out for us,
that's actively addressing the racial disparities in healthcare is important.
When we can get good quality care, we can do more. We can achieve more.
We can be the kind of community we want to be, and that's really important.
UW Health. Remarkable medicine. Remarkable care.
All right, so this, as you might have heard last week, the governor appointed Calvin Barrett to be the next sheriff of Dane County. He was good enough to talk with me last night, and so I have that for you here. I think I had the wrong audio thing selected, which is my fault. So my side of the audio. Sorry if it sounds kind of tinny a little bit, but it's fine. But here's that interview with me and new incoming Dane County Sheriff, the first black sheriff in the history of Dane County, Calvin Barrett. On the program today, the next sheriff of Dane County, Mr. Calvin Barrett. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't you just introduce yourself to Dane County? Tell us a little bit about where you come from and what led you to this point.
Right. Well, good evening, Dane County. My name is Calvin Barrett, and I've been appointed the next Dane County Sheriff, and I look forward to serving you all in a capacity as a leader that is excited to take over a great department and really do some great things for our criminal justice system here in Dane County. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, raised in San Diego, California. I came to Wisconsin to play football under the leadership of legendary coach Barry Alvarez in 2000. I graduated in 2004 with a degree in sociology. And in 2009, I moved back to Madison from Texas to be hired as a deputy with the Dane County Sheriff's Department. Then in 2011, I was hired by the Sun Prairie Police Department as the first African-American officer ever hired in their history. And over the past 4.5 years, I've been an instructor at Madison College in their Criminal Justice Studies program and the Law Enforcement Academy. And more recently, I'm a faculty director of diversity and inclusion in our Criminal Justice Studies program and our Law Enforcement Academy. So it's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to introduce myself to you, Dane County.
Great, thank you for that. Now, you mentioned that you were the first black officer in Sun Prairie, and now you're the first black sheriff of Dane County. So that's not a new thing for you. And you also are now the diversity and inclusion director at Madison College in the program there. All of that put together, what does that bring to the county sheriff's office? Do you know what I mean? Like does that bring something special? Is that a special lens through which you're going to look at this job, or can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely, it brings I bring a unique lens. I mean, my experience not only in my professional setting, but my experience as my education. But also my life experiences brings a unique lens to the law enforcement, community here in Dane County, especially as sheriff, as there's never been an African-American or a black sheriff ever in our history. And I believe my experiences, both professionally and personally, will allow me to view things from a lens that has never been seen before. And I think that is very unique in regards to how we view hirings, terminations, work rules, policies, procedures, community-based programs, and other innovative evidence-based, crime reduction efforts, in our criminal justice system.
Now, you're taking this role on at a time when there's a lot of talk about racial justice, racial equity in the criminal justice system. A lot of contention between certain members of the community and law enforcement more broadly. How do you feel about being a police officer and being especially a black police officer at this particular time through all this that's been happening over the past year?
Yeah, and I do agree. It is definitely a tough time, especially for an officer of color, but I think it's a great opportunity for me to represent two communities to which I belong to, and that is as a Black man in American society, but also as a Black police officer. And I think as a police officer, I'm in a position really to bring understanding and find common ground between our underrepresented communities and our law enforcement community. And I think as a leader, like the Dane County Sheriff of an entire county, I think this is a great opportunity for me to bring that unique lens to problem solving skills, crime reduction issues, but also any other type criminal justice related issues that we're seeing in the criminal justice system. So yes, it's a tough time, but it's a burden that I bear proudly because I do love both my profession and the community that I come from. And I am excited for the opportunity to represent not only myself as an African-American man, but as a law enforcement officer as well.
Now, another area that falls under your purview as sheriff is the jail.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And there's been a long debate and contention over at the county board level over whether to build a new jail, expand a jail. Do you have an opinion on that, or are you just waiting for the elected folks to figure it out?
Yeah, I'm waiting. I think there's I've experienced working in the Dane County Jail, especially in the city county building. And I think what the main concern is really just the treatment. And I understand, all aspects of this issue in regards to the amount of money being spent on the new consolidated facility. But I think when it comes down to treatment, that's what I'm really going to focus on once I get into the position and I'm able to see it and understand and assess it from the inside as well as from the outside. And then I'd be able to make, a better, a well-informed decision in regards to the Dane County Jail.
And we've seen over this past year with COVID, like the sheriff and the staff really intentionally rapidly reduce the population of the jail in order to try to mitigate the spread of this virus, which then leads to the question, like, maybe we could just sort of permanently reduce the population of the jail, by changing the way we think about bond and bail and work release and that kind of stuff. Do you have any thoughts on sort of decarceration or perhaps less incarceration as a policy matter?
Absolutely. And, our ultimate goal and my ultimate goal as the Dane County Sheriff is always going to be to reduce our jail population and keep it as low as possible. Incarceration is designed for those who pose the most significant threat to our communities. And for those who do not pose a significant threat, there's no real reason for them to be incarcerated in the jail. I think there are things that are happening right now in the COVID world that have allowed us to take a look at how we keep our jail population down. But we also have to take in consideration the lack of activity on our court side, right? There hasn't been the trials. There hasn't been really a lot of the things that keep that incarcerate people, and that's going to pick up here. I believe again as of June 1st. So it is, I think it is kind of a false narrative in regards to us keeping the numbers down where they're at. But if you look at the whole picture, the holistic view of our criminal justice system, we see that in certain areas it hasn't been as active as it has in the past, which has led to our lower numbers of incarceration at this moment.
What are if you could name 2 or 3 top priorities in your first year or two as sheriff, what would you say?
Number one is to strengthen our already established relationships and rebuild fractured relationships. Mm-hmm. Also, I want to continue to find new and innovative ways of crime reduction to keep our community safe, but also continue community engagement and working with the community to build stronger relationships. I believe that proximity breeds care and distance breeds fear. And the more that we're in our communities and we're hearing and listening to our communities, it will allow us to understand our communities and then put forth really proactive approaches to crime reduction that doesn't involve incarceration.
How would you respond if somebody said, I hear what you're saying about proximity breeds trust, but what about people who feel like we're being over-policed? You know what I mean? Like, is there a balance to strike there? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And the proximity is not necessarily policing, right? The proximity I'm talking about isn't going in and arresting people for minor violations, taking the broken
or broken windows, or making people feel like you're there watching them.
Yes, that's not there. That's not the proximity. I'm talking about being out on foot patrols, which we see with our local law enforcement agencies. Talking about going to community meetings, being involved in community-based programs, getting out and creating programs through our community deputies to really build those relationships with our youth, but also with the communities that we serve. So the proximity I was specifically talking to is regards to looking at each other and being able to communicate on a one-on-one level, not necessarily a policing level.
You talk about rebuilding fractured relationships, which we know a lot about that at the sort of the national level, but at the local level here, in the Madison area, you're talking about Dane County more broadly, but is there anything specific there in terms of fractured relationships that you're going to try to, what are the groups and the people you're going to reach out to first to try to?
Right. Well, it all really comes down to all communities, basically. But, the ones where we've had the most trust are underrepresented communities and our Black and Brown communities. And that is something that I think is very important, that we're able to really understand and really reach out and find their concerns and be able to keep them safe without over policing them or without being, too heavy of a burden in regards to our presence, in regards to minor violations and other things like that. So there's definitely a fine balance that we have to maintain between community safety, but also making sure that we're treating our community members with respect, dignity, and humanity.
All right. Well, Calvin Barrett, congratulations on the new job. Best of luck to you. We will be following you closely. We'll be asking difficult questions at times, but I'm sure you can handle that. I really appreciate you giving us a few minutes today.
Hey, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Dane County, and I look forward to serving you guys. Thank you.
We appreciate Calvin Barrett joining us last night for that interview. And as I said, we will be keeping an eye on his tenure, and we're not going to go easy on him. we typically don't. A couple other things before I sign off here that I want to mention. First of all, this is Michael Johnson, CEO of the Boys and Girls Club, getting his shot. The Boys and Girls Club is hosting Johnson & Johnson shots for free for the next 3 Saturdays at their Sun Prairie, at their Taft Street, and at their Ally Drive locations. And the first 2 Saturdays are already full of registrants. And there's still a few spots, as of this morning at least, there are still a few spots open in that 3rd Saturday. But Michael has said on social media that he's they're trying to get some more supply so they can open up a few more a few more appointments. So the link to sign up is on our website. If you look for this picture, click that. There's a little article there with the link at the end to sign up. There's also a really nice story today that our reporter Mackenzie Crum did about the Social Good Accelerator, which is a nonprofit entrepreneurship program, which is Alnisa Allgood runs that program. She thinks about nonprofit entrepreneurship in a really interesting way. I think that you don't have to be poor to be a nonprofit leader. You can be an entrepreneur, but the business you start as a nonprofit, which is a really interesting way to think about that. So that story is on the website. The new sheriff mentioned legendary coach Barry Alvarez, who's been the athletic director at Wisconsin and is now retiring officially. So there's a story on that on the website, a little bit of background on that. And the search for the new athletic director will get underway very soon if it's not already started. And finally today in national news, Florida Congressman Elsie Hastings. I don't know why I could blank on Hastings. Elsie Hastings, congressman from Florida, has been in Congress since 1993. Passed away yesterday, I guess. It was just announced today at the age of 84. So our condolences to him and to the Florida delegation, to his family. That is the news for today. I appreciate you sticking with me, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. It's a beautiful night. I hope you get out. I hope you get your vaccine. Take care of yourselves. Be safe, and I'll see you again at this time tomorrow. Have a great night.
This is 365 Media.